So, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Mark Fraser. I am the Global Product Manager for Business Continuity, ISO 22301, the Business Continuity Management System. I'm going to be just saying a few introductory words about Bureau Veritas before we get into the main body of the training. So, thanks so much for joining us. We've got many of you from around the world. I hope you're all set up now, having done the little introductory exercises. And I'm just going to mention a little bit about what BV does, what Bureau Veritas does, in case you don't know us. We have an objective of transforming the world we live in by contributing the reduction of risk and the trust and the association of confidence with the third-party audit we're providing and the training services that we provide. We are in what is called the testing, inspection, and certification market. We do many things as well as certification, including inspections and safety advisory work. We do product testing as well and laboratories, and we do many things in many markets. But the part of the business that I come from and that we're talking to you about is the certification business. And so we are one of the largest certification bodies in the world. We have 120,000 client companies around the world. 300 of those are in the Fortune 500. We have 145,000 certificates globally and 8,000 or more auditors in 140 countries. And we hold 70 accreditations nationally and internationally. So we've been around a while in this and we're well established. As you can see, we're distributed fairly evenly around the world, coming from Europe originally, where we're central, but in Asia, Pacific, and Middle East, India, Russia, Africa, North and South America, we have this sort of dispersed range of auditors and tutors. So at this point, I'm going to hand over, though, because you didn't come here just to hear about BV. You came here to hear about business continuity. And Basilio Vieira is our technical expert on this subject. He's an auditor who's based out of Britain, originally from Portugal, but now resident in Britain. He's going to take you through the main body of the presentation. He's a lead auditor for business continuity, information security, data protection, and a very well-grounded expert. So at this point, I hand over to you, Basilio.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for this lovely introduction. And thank you for all the 74 participants that decided to join us on this training course, on this live virtual classroom around business continuity. I will be taking you on this live virtual classroom. We will focus on the key concepts of business continuity. Business continuity is dealing with the consequences of a disruptive incident that can happen within our organization. The disruptive incident can be a flood, or can be a strike, or a loss of access to a building. Any such event that can have a negative impact on our activities and our services that our organization provides is actually classed as a business continuity incident, which, if it is not managed, which we don't give it an appropriate response, could have a very significant impact on our organization, a very long and durable impact on our organization. So to manage these issues of business continuity, we actually have a management system supporting business continuity, which is all this BCMS that we're talking about. One of the core parts of the business impact analysis, of the business continuity management system, is the business impact analysis. I will go into detail on this. I will skip fast over lots of different topics still relevant to the BCMS that is apt for a full training option that we will have further down the road. This is just to provide a conversation starter for BCMS. And in the end, we will have a short conversation with regards to a post-COVID-19 world. We are currently living a stressful situation. We're living through the adjustments of dealing with the pandemic. and this is a major business continuity event. There's obviously lots of lessons to be learned here. So, with, without further ado, I would like you at this stage to take part on a small exercise, mostly so you can provide your input on your current understanding of the threats that would impact your identity. Soma, I'm handing this over to you. Soma is the host that is piloting this live
Right.
virtual
Thank you, Basilio, for that great introduction to the course. Before we start, guys, we wanted to actually know what disruptions, actually did your organization identify in 2019 and 2020? And you can type in your answers in the polls in the open text section that you see on your screen right now. You can take up to a minute and you can type in your answers. You can see exercise 1.1 and 1.2 on your screen. And we hope you all participate actively in this exercise. We see some answers coming in, but we definitely want some more answers. We see 77 participants online, and we really want some more answers from you guys. Go ahead and give it a try and let us know what are the disruptions that or threats that your company identified in 2019 and 2020.
Well, thank you. That was some meaningful inputs in there. Let me just run through it on a very fast pace. Yes, most people thought that cyber attack was the worst one. There are lots of interesting risks that were identified here in 2019 and obviously then in 2020. Now, we're doing this as individuals that work in different organizations, but there are actually organizations that are specialized on identifying threats on a global, country, region, and activity-wide scale for a significant period of time. One of those organizations is the Business Continuity Institute. I'm going to share with you their assessment of the threats and risks for 2019. So it was a threat and assessment for the last 12 months, and the risk and threat assessment for the next 12 months was for 2020. This was created based on respondents from 74 countries in 11 sectors, done by professionals that know a lot of what they are doing. What I would like to be the major takeaway on this one is that although this is done by professionals, none of them actually predicted that the COVID-19 pandemic would be a major disruption for the next 12 months. We were expecting cyber attacks and data breaches to be the major cause of disruption, and we're actually dealing with a full-blown pandemic at this moment. So when dealing with business continuity management system, don't be optimist and expect the unexpected, and be reasonable about what can actually go wrong and not just what you would hope that could go wrong in a best case scenario. The reason why we're dealing with this business continuity is that there is a significant negative impact when a business is disrupted. The impact that we have, it's the society that is impacted, it's the stakeholders' interests that are defrauded, we may eventually be in breach of laws and regulations. So by not having addressed a business continuity event properly, we may end up in a lawsuit or having to pay fines or in contractual breaches. So we need to have a comprehensive approach towards mitigating these consequences. As I said, none of these consequences are good and none of them are to be ignored. We just need to gauge our exposure to those impacts. And for that, we are using one of the auditor's favorite tools, one of the organization's favorite tools for managing an issue, which is a business continuity management system. What I have there is the standard definition of what is a business continuity management process or system. I've lighted a few words there. The holistic management process, it's just a fancy word to say that it has to be a global approach. Everyone within the organization has to be involved on creating, implementing, and maintaining this management system, this response to a business continuity event. It's not something that can be done by 3 people sitting in a corner and taking care of creating business continuity plans. It's actually an effort from everyone working under the control of the organization. And only that way we can actually minimize impact and gain resilience, gain the capacity to be working over and over, year after year, decade after decade, and have a long-lasting organization that can provide a positive input into society and the stakeholders. When implementing a business continuity management system, it's a multi-step process. We don't do it all at once. It's like eating an elephant. You take a spoonful at a time. Please, if there's any vegans around, this is just a figure of speech. But when you're dealing with a big task, there are some key actions to be done. So you start by creating your very own disaster recovery team. This is the team, the group of people that will have to have a deeper understanding of the business continuity within your organization, have a deeper understanding of your organization's activities and vulnerabilities. And then everyone in the organization can work to provide guidance to the company's disaster recovery team. Every manager, everyone in leadership, every single person working under the organization of the control of the organization can actually provide a guidance on what risks, what impacts, what's the relevance of their activities and departments to build a proper understanding of the risks involved in a business continuity event. So we assessed the threats, risks, and impacts. We're now going to identify the critical resources, data, backup locations, and everything that is critical in the event of a disruption. If we suddenly are faced with a flood and we cannot work on the office, either we move for a different office on temporary location. Is it viable on that one, on that occasion? Has this been considered before? What location are they going to use? What new risks that location may eventually present? If we are moving to a different location, will we have all the resources? Do we need extra screens? Do we need extra laptops? Where are those laptops? Are they stored in the same office? Were they stored in a different location? Who can actually go there and reach for those resources? It could be laptops, it could be printers, it could be any tooling machine whatever resources we need to overcome a business continuity event have to be identified and have to be clearly defined. Now, the point number 5 is very close to me, it's very dear to me, which is having a clear channel for emergency communications. I cannot stress enough that during a business continuity event, we're pretty much dealing with chaos. Having a correct channel for emergency communications, everyone knowing who they can and they cannot call, knowing exactly who to call to escalate this issue, will promote clear communication, saying exactly what's happening, what decisions are to be made, and what options do they have. And this will also provide for a clear record of the events for the lessons to be learned. So establishing and maintaining a clear channel for emergency communications is actually key to having a correct implementation of the BCMS. Exercise and testing, we will go into that lightly. Again, there will be more extensive training provided for this, but I would just like at this stage saying that when everything is going right, we should always plan for when everything can go wrong. And this is the reason why we need to have planned and managed testing and exercising of our business continuity plans. And as always, because this is a management system, there is always opportunity for improvement. What we created this year, next year we will see that we can actually do that we can do more, better, and faster with less resources. This is the part of the continual improvement on any management system.
Basilio, we have a
So
question from
there
Krish
are,
here, and I think it's an interesting question that we can answer.
Okay. So question from Krish. So we need to involve the interested parties as well in BIA, which is as well as the recovery team. Well, Krish, you are right to some extent. Yes, the level of awareness, we will see that later down the road, but having a consideration over the whole complexity of your supply chain is critical for a correct implementation of the BCMS. Where no organization exists in a vacuum, so you need actually to consider interested parties and your supply chains as some of those interested parties when creating the business impact analysis. Thank you for that question, Krish. I hope I answered it correctly to you. Now, looking at the drivers and benefits of the BCMS, there are lots of positive benefits of implementing a BCMS. As always, it is a complex task, but the benefits that an organization will reap in the future will be extensive and will be mostly around mitigating the negative impacts. A BCMS can also be a part of overall enterprise risk management, which may deal with larger risks, for instance, information security. But in the end, what we're really trying is to reap those benefits. Those would be probably the most obvious reasons why an organization would go for the implementation of a BCMS. Now, I'm going to move over to Soma for another exercise. The reason why we're having this exercise is that although I try to get away from technical lingo, technical jargon, on BCMS, there are actually a few key concepts that come with names. So we're going just to run this through yourselves to see what's your input at this moment.
Okay.
What's your
I'll allow Basilio to take a break, and I'll take over for a minute, maybe. So we have a few questions on screen right now. You can see exercise 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. What we need from you is an answer to each of those questions. It's pretty straightforward, and I will request you to answer each of the question, and we'll show you what each one of you have answered, maybe in some time. So please go ahead and give it a shot, and we'll share the results pretty shortly.
And I think we can pretty much call the first part of this exercise done. I am deeply disappointed that no one actually considered the maximum acceptable outage to be how long you can ignore calls from your in-laws. But I think Soma is now sharing the results. Most people have a clear understanding of the, the, the terminology and the key concepts behind business continuity management systems. Thank you for this. We'll now move to the second half.
Right. Similar to the first one, we have another set of questions, which is exercise 2.4, 2.5, and 2.6. And please actively participate in these questions. And as earlier, we'll share with you the results, and Basilio will take it over from there again. All right. I think we've received a good amount of answers. I'm giving another 10 seconds, maybe to answer the questions, and then we'll be moving ahead.
Yes, indeed. There is a correct understanding of this key concept. The one I was most afraid of that people would not be able to understand would be the concept of the recovery point objective. There are two terminologies that are quite similar in the way they sound. I'm going to move to this would be the correct definition of this terminology, of the lingo around business continuity management system. The recovery point objective is, in a nutshell, the time between backups. So if you're facing an event on a Tuesday, and if you have weekly backups every Friday, you will restore your backups from last Friday, and you will probably need at some stage to redo your work, the work that was done yesterday on Monday, that was not captured on this current set of backups. The key concept that we'll be looking at is the RTO, which is the recovery time objective. The recovery time objective is our time goal. It's the period of time following an incident within which the product or service must be resumed. So as soon as there is an incident, our RTO is the moment in time we wish things to already be improving in a significant way. There is a nice graph that describes this, and there it is. So I will briefly explain this. This graph has one horizontal green line, which is the normal level of service of our organization. This could be the number of parts that are created per day or per hour. it is our organization working normally. There will be always some fluctuations, but nothing drastic. And as soon as there is a disruption, that's a level of service, the amount of calls that we can take, or the amount of parts that we are making, or the amount of processes that we're dealing with, will fall drastically due to that disruption, and it will fall below what the organization has considered a minimum business continuity objective, which is the bare minimum level of service that the organization can provide to stay away from trouble. And, so I said, working as normal, there is a disruption, level of service falls below the bare minimum, and we aim, and this is the reason why I've got this circle here, we aim with the BCMS to actually be able to recover back above those bare minimum levels and then improve on that over time, instead of just dingling on this red line and then just going into a moment in time somewhere in the future where we would still be working day after day without achieving the bare minimum level of service that we need, and then we would face unacceptable damages. This would be the result of dealing with a major disruption without the business continuity management system, being able to recover above the bare minimum and then improve on that over time, and not running into unacceptable damages would be the end result of having a BCMS. So this is the way this graph describes this. These these vertical lines, these green vertical lines marks the moment where the disruption happens. The yellow line is our recovery time objective. So it is the moment that we aim to already be working to a minimum level. And the red line is the do not cross line. It would be the maximum acceptable outage, the moment where we actually say this is already unacceptable. We will now face dire consequences of this disruption. Whether this line here represents 2 hours, 2 days, or 2 months, and whether this line, which will always be more than the RTO, represents 2 weeks, or 1 month, or 6 months, it's entirely up to each organization to understand. It's not, there's no correct answer there. Each organization will be facing different challenges, different ways to deal with impacts. So for our third exercise, we will try to assess your best guess at figuring out the business continuity management on a multi-specialty large hospital. A multi-specialty large hospital is it's an expensive expression to say probably a citywide hospital, an hospital that's serving a major city with lots of specialities, orthopedics and cardiac diseases. So it is a major and critical component of the of your society, and you must give some consideration on what kind of impact a disruptive incident could have, and what possible kind of recovery you would expect realistically to have from this very large hospital.
Yes. So we've kept the polls on for a minute, and we expect you to have a quick look at them and try to see if you can come up with some answers. You can answer in the poll section, and we'll share the results shortly.
Okay, let me jump in on this one, but feel free to keep on providing your input. I was trying to use the popcorn method, which is the same way I use when I'm making popcorn. I just wait for the kernels to stop popping for 3 seconds and then jump in. But I see that you're still providing results on this one. There is a few considerations. There was a question that had a clear yes or no answer, which is the company BCMS has defined an RTO as 4 hours. And then the suppliers, based on their individual circumstances, have determined that their individual RTOs were from 3 to 8 hours. Is this okay for the company? And the answer on this one is a clear no. This is wrong. You cannot expect to be recovering, to be back working again if your critical suppliers are not able to have recovered from a similar event. So if you're aiming to be working back again on 4 hours, your suppliers, if they are only going to be work to bare minimum in 8 hours, you would clearly have a mismatch of those RTOs. So this is actually plays with part of the question from Kirsch on whether we need to consider the interested parties. So here you see it clearly. If your supplier is not back online, you cannot hopefully resume cannot realistically resume your work. No other questions, no other remarks on those questions apart from the exercise 3.4. Some of you went for the very optimistic, and I hope you could actually achieve that, having 70% of services back online by the RTO. So you were actually saying that you would wish to have, as a bare minimum, 70% of the services back online by the 4 hours of the by the 2 hours of our hospital. Realistically, setting a very high objective will most of the time won't be possible. So it's usual to see on a business management system, business continuity management system, to see a rather apparently low bare minimum service. That if you consider that an hospital as it's filled with lots of people that are not in critical condition, you can actually plan properly, identify it, and say, we just need to focus on this 25% of these services that need to be back online. People that are in under observation because they have low to mild conditions, they can probably be managed as not as high priority as someone that is on an operation room. So it's mostly about figuring out where are your core activities, where are your major risks, and I don't realistically agree that there is 70% of your business should be the core risk should be your core objective of bringing it back online. That is something that you address later on, bringing that back from 25, for instance, to 70%. And having said this, thank you for taking a participation on these exercises. When implementing this business continuity management system, as all management systems, we have to have a clear understanding of our scope, of our context of our organization, what are the key products that could be included within BCMS, and this is mostly about understanding our legal and contractual requirements, stakeholders, our supply chain, and then defining the scope, which activities we actually need to protect. And as always, there are objectives, because what gets measured gets managed. When implementing a business continuity management system as a quality management system or an information security management system, the leadership will define the objectives, will define the goals that we will be working towards when implementing this. Those goals can be as diverse as every organization, but we will learn more about this in the full training session. We will consider that goals has to be direct, detailed, meaningful, quantifiable, so we can track progress and success, although keeping it realistically and be time-bound. Now, for the awareness, people awareness part, awareness is always very much relevant in every organization. Everyone involved in the organization has to have a clear understanding of what's happening on the organization, what's their objectives, what's the issues that are dealing, but especially when dealing with the business continuity, people awareness is quite relevant, mostly because everyone has to know their role during a disruption. I fully understand that for 80% of the people, of the employees, of everyone involved in an organization, when dealing in the disruption, the full extent of their role would be to exit the building and meet at the muster point and don't talk to the media. There is a department, there is someone to address the media directly. Just get out of the way and don't make it any worse. It's the full extent of the contribution that people are expected to have on during a disruption, and anything that they would do apart from that will actually make the problems worse. By having, for instance, a nice chat with a girl on the media, or telling a reporter, yes, this whole place has burned down. Well, actually, it's just a corner of the building that is burned down, and these things they eventually escalate, making all matters worse. Now, the other key component when dealing with a business continuity management system, this is, as always, a risk-based standard. And this will be mostly about assessing risks and threats. But for the business continuity management system, we really need to focus on how to perform a business impact analysis and be good at it. And when I mean being good at it, is having a clear understanding of our organization and what can actually go wrong and how extensive it can go wrong in our organization. This will be a clear and major focus on the full training session. But for now, I just want you to focus on the concept that we need to understand the products, processes, and activities that are covered by our BCMS, and having this full understanding of what we are doing, we will now look at the impact, RTOs, and dependencies. Meaning we'll have a clear understanding, we'll write this down, what can go wrong, in what extent it can go wrong, how soon we want it to start going right, so our RTOs, and to what level we need to be working at, and identifying external and internal dependencies, like suppliers. So I created a small generic fictional business impact analysis. It is an organization that has a design and development department, has a project department, operations, and then a customer support department. We can all see how this department work, but I have lighted some of them with orange box, so I can provide some comments on this one. You can see that the customer support department is directly dependent on the operations. If the operations department is shut down, if the operations department is not passing them information, customer support cannot work. They won't have any way of reaching out to customers. There is a clear definition of the priority for each one of these organizations. I used a low, medium, and high. Feel free to use any other way, but it is relevant to understand that design and development was considered as low priority, so it's not part of the core activity that we need to protect on our organization, apart from considering the impact of that activity not working on the other interdependent activities. It's the same thing as figuring out that in a big restaurant, in a big hospital, we do have some catering services, but we can consider those low priorities, and we will always consider the operating room as a high priority. We've defined different return time objectives. We have a clear understanding of how frequently we're taking backups. So we need to know if we need to restore any critical data, how much time we are going to need to fill in the gaps of the data that was lost by restoring something from the past. And we have a clear understanding of the impact. I just noted the type of impact that every activity can suffer, but mostly it's up to every person doing the business impact analysis to provide more meat over these bones to actually provide a better understanding of what can go wrong and what the impact of that will be on the organization. And later, just adding IT resources. We are now always running organizations that are heavily dependent on IT. Having a correct understanding of the resources that are involved helps a lot on planning and on creating a strategy, which is what this whole scenario is about. We now have a clear understanding of our organization, that it doesn't operate in a vacuum, all the supply chains and all the interested parties around it, what can actually become a threat to our organization, what impact that threat will happen if it actually occurs, what minimum levels of service we need to provide to be able to bring the organization back to work. Now we're going to define strategies, and strategies are as different as the issues that we're tackling and the resources that we're dealing with. So for people, we may eventually consider that multi-skill training is probably the best strategy. We will then face less issues with the loss of key personnel. Sometimes people play on the national lottery. They win the national lottery and decide to move to the Caribbean without giving a proper warning. This needs to be managed so it doesn't have a very high impact on our organization. Same thing for premises, considering alternate premises, considering disaster recovery sites. For technology, considering having redundant servers, having a redundancy of communication links. All of these are options that are going to be explained and studied further on the full training sessions, but it's as diverse as the challenges that each organization is facing and as the paths that they have decided to lay down when dealing with the business continuity event. So we now have all the tools we need to create a business continuity plan, which is a set of documented procedures. They will include tasks and actions to be followed, emergency contacts, persons, and specific activities. For instance, media response. Who is going to talk to the media? What kind of text will we use to communicate with the media? What would be the tone of that communication to manage that relationship with the media in a way that it doesn't they don't lose control of the reporting of this and it doesn't become a bigger problem. Figuring out all of these details is actually what's part of the business continuity plan. It's a set of documented procedures, so it has to be written down, fully understood, and communicated within the organization. And the last line is the process for standing down once the incident is over. As soon as someone that has the authority to manage this business continuity says that we're now standing down, it means that this business continuity incident is now over and we're now going to be able to move into the last part, which is the lessons to be learned from this event. On every single event, we need to record everything that happened so we can improve and take the lessons to be learned out of those events. And this we're nearing the end of this very short introduction to business continuity management systems. as I said, when everything is going right, you actually do exercises and tests for when everything goes wrong. And those exercises and tests, they have to be planned, managed, they have to be done on a regular basis with good note takings, with records of the exercise that was done, who did what went right, what went wrong, how can we improve on that one. There's always lessons to be learned, but at least what we need to consider is that those they should be formal post-exercise reports. It's the basic of it, either pictures or it didn't happen. If there are no records, then we might as well have not done the exercise at all. We need to have formal post-exercise reports, then to be reviewed and to expand on the lessons to be learned. So, thank you for taking part on this short introduction on what is a business continuity management system based on the international ISO 22301 standard, which is something, it's a service that we can provide as a certification of your business continuity management system on your organization. But let me just use your attention just to consider a few lessons to be learned on a post-COVID-19 world. As I said in the beginning, we are facing a major pandemic. Most people didn't live such a dramatic event on their lifetime, and this pandemic had lots of lessons to be learned here. One of them is probably the most obvious one, VPN, which are virtual private networks. It's a piece of software that allows people to work from home with a secure connection to the company services, systems, IT systems, as if they were at the office. Every so often, I saw organizations in these last 15 days when they went into lockdown, when everyone started working from home, facing issues with capacity of this software, of these VPNs. And the reason why this happened was due to a very optimistic understanding of the workload involved by sending everyone to work from home. Another lesson to be learned here is that obviously people cannot provide the same level of productivity when they are working from home with a small notebook, a small laptop screen, as they were providing when they had 3 huge screens in front of them at their own desk at the office. Figuring out that we need bigger screens at home was one of the most obvious lessons. And another interesting lesson to be taken away from this is we are always considered events to be very limited in time. Even if the event of a fire in a building, we will always consider that there is a fire lasts for 1 day, and then there is a cleanup period, and in 15 days we can actually be working, we can actually depend on that building again. On this pandemic, we are facing a much bigger event duration that anyone was expecting. So this is a very significant takeaway that we can have on this post-COVID-19 world. Another thing that we're dealing with is information security on our business continuity strategy. By sending everyone to work from home, we actually created several different information security risks that were not, most of the time, were not determined before sending people working from home. We now have people that are dependent on internet home connections that are not as stable, that are not as fast, that are not as secure as the ones that they used in their work. They are now going to be subjected to unexpected emails, and this will eventually lead to lots of examples of phishing, of people stealing information by sending an email saying, I need you to reply to this form because COVID-19, and people will abide. So there are lots of risks for information security. And the third point that I would like to consider at this moment is, was this warning used wisely? And I believe to some extent it wasn't. There was a lot of global organizations, a lot of organizations that were fully aware that this was developing in one part of the world, and it will reach Europe, it will reach the United States, it will reach South America, but they haven't done anything. They haven't done proper training, testing, preparation. They haven't done a phased out move to work from home, even though they could see that was in the future as an option. So should we? I think we should stop and consider why were not those early warnings used wisely. We should learn from these lessons and try to deal better with this in the future. And as always, there is evolutions and revolutions. This whole COVID-19 ends up being a bit of both. It is something that will shape the way we work. There will be a definition of a new normal. More people working from home than in the past. It's actually probably the most obvious definition of a new normal, even after the pandemic goes away. This will come.
Thank you, Basilia. Yes, good stuff. We had a session earlier today, and we had quite a few questions on that one. We do have 10 minutes available now if you want to type in your questions. I haven't had any actual questions. I've had one result was not showing, but I believe we've dealt with that now. We went through the answers in the end, and we will share a recording of this live virtual classroom with you at the end. So that's how you'll get access to the information if you want to see it again. If there are any questions about the technical content, please fire away. I have a couple of little promotional slides, of course, to bore you with before you get to that part. We do offer full classroom training. Clearly, that's not really possible at the moment, given the lockdown in so many countries. But what we would like to do is share the content of our one-day introduction course or our two-day mastering course, which are normally available face-to-face, in live virtual classrooms. So we do have, through this template, through this Adobe Connect platform, the ability to deliver content in an interactive way, and we'll be considering which aspects are most appropriate for the audience. But if you have any suggestions, please let us know. You can send emails to us, or you can put it in the chat box right now. We do also have a full 5-day lead auditor course, an accredited CQI IRCA lead auditor qualification, where you will get a certificate at the end. So those courses are available. We'll be doing more online courses, I hope, in the near future. It's always a bit dependent on demand. I would like to give a little plug for certification too. We are a certification body. We do offer training and certification, and the certification cycle, as you may know, if some of you are our customers, tends to run on a 3-year cycle with a pre-audit, audit, and then surveillance audits over the next 2 years, and then recertification on the 3rd year. So it's the same for business continuity, and this is a very familiar looking pattern for most of you, I believe. And why certify? Well, we like to think that the reputation of Bureau Veritas adds value to your organization, that you can say you have an accredited third party who has taken a view of your management system and your preparedness and has given you that certificate, which should reassure stakeholders throughout your value chain and enable you to feel satisfied that you've embedded business continuity thinking in your organization, and people really are living and breathing these business continuity plans. And of course, you will have to have done practices, you will have to have all the right people trained, you will have to have roles and responsibilities allocated, and all that good stuff is proved by a certificate. And that enables you to enhance your reputation and differentiate from competitors, and to continue to find those improvements as your business continuity system. Surely it is being tested right now if you have one in place, and there'll be lots of great learnings from that, I'm sure, that we'll be seeing in our ongoing audits of our customers, the kind of findings and the root cause analysis on how this played out. So that's it for now. I have seen a couple of questions, so I will cut back over to those. We have one in the chat box here. Can you share the methodology of BIA? Business Impact Assessment. In the full training, we can go into that in more detail.
Yeah,
Sridhar. Other questions? Soma, if you want to handle this, sorry, I'm jumping into your role a bit there, I think, or Basilio, please go ahead.
Yes. So we have a question from Krishna Mohan. Can we do more online lead auditor courses ASAP? So Mark, I think that question's for you. Can we do more online lead auditor courses as soon as possible? All right, we have a few more questions coming in. We have a question from Buramuku Reddy. Can BV perform remote audits and accept remote audits for BCMS?
Wait, I think we're
Uh,
trouble. Basilio's having trouble unmuting, he was saying. Maybe there's a little bit of a glitch in the platform. Are you there, Basilio? We've lost our subject matter expert. This isn't good. Okay, so I will try and handle what we've got in the way of questions here. I think because we've got quite a lot of attendees, we're having a little bit of gremlins on the platform. Jump in if you can, Basilio. But yes, we do remote audits. We do them in very different ways in different countries. We use Teams, Microsoft Teams. We do remote audits using Adobe Connect that you can see here. And some country offices use GoToWebinar and WebEx and other tools like that. It depends really on the client's preference as well. For BCMS, I believe it's possible. I couldn't put my hand on my heart and tell you that we have done one yet, but we have quite a number of BCMS clients. So what's probably happening is we're asking our clients to do the audit remotely and trying to avoid having to reschedule it because we're trying to keep our audit cycle going for the 3-year cycle I showed you just a few slides earlier. So yes, we can do remote audits, and we have to in this time.
all right, we have some questions coming in the chat section. Request everyone to please put in the question in the Q&A box. We have a question from Zaid. It says, which potential companies can take lead to be certified? Not really sure if the question is clear for anyone.
Got lots in the IT sector. There's quite a few financial customers, ones where systems really have to be available. A lot of the early adopters for business continuity tended to come from software, IT sectors, banking, where 24/7 availability of services is really vital to the business. But it really varies. I mean, I know from our business in Turkey, we have very heavy industrial clients and quite a number of infrastructure, construction people, and it's a real range of different organizations. Whereas in India, for example, it's a lot of IT, and in the US as well. So really quite a wide range. It's not specific to any particular sector. Any kind of company from any industry can implement and certify. And indeed, oil and gas, as Barumuku has just mentioned there.
Indeed, Mark. Indeed, I'm quite proud of the way you delivered that.
Basilio, you're back.
I was
Hey!
just quiet, just listening to the way you were providing explanation, way better to be able to. Yes, I believe at this stage all the questions were pretty much answered. There is one, I don't know if it was addressed. On average, how long does it take to implement the standard in a small, non-complex business if you have ISO 9001 in place? This is an interesting question. So it's from Tony Brakmansky. I believe I got the name right. It is on average, how long does it take to implement the standard in a small, non-complex business if you already have ISO 9001 in place? What I would say is that because these standards are built on the same structure, they are built on the same key concepts of a 9001 standard or the ISO 27000 information security one. They all share the same high-level structure. This means that an organization that already has a certificate for 9001 has at least done half of the work of having an understanding on how to manage this system so far. So this is an interesting question. Obviously, the correct answer will be different from everyone, every organization within, will different from organization to organization. But yes, having already done the work for ISO 9001, there's a lot of transferable skills to be used here.
All right, we have one last question in the chat section, Basilio. The question is approximately what is the percentage of companies all over the world who have gone for BCMS?
And I posted in an answer to that one. You can download from the ISO website. The International Organization for Standardization does a survey annually of certification bodies like us, and you can see the data that's available at that link on the screen now if you want to download it. From memory, because I'm not looking at it right now, there's at least 3,000, it could be like 4,000 or 5,000, I'm not 100% sure, certificates in existence, and it's growing steadily year on year. It shows you where they are in which countries and which sectors. I would caution you, the data isn't always 100% perfect because it relies upon other certification bodies also to submit that industry-wide, and some years that gets missed and some years it gets included. So the current data is available there if you want to download.
Mm-hmm. And the short answer to that one is how many organizations are? Well, I'm guessing that at least 80% of the organizations that have a ISO 22301 certificate will be the ones that will be able to survive this pandemic. So it's just about making a count of the organizations that were alive and well after this COVID-19 pandemic, and that would give you a rough guide on how many of them actually implemented the business continuity management system.
And clearly there'll be a lot of learning going on as a result of this experience, and a lot of people being very well prepared for pandemics in the future. We've run out of time now, everybody. So thank you very much for your participation. We do have questions from the earlier session as well. We're going to roll into a frequently asked question. I will pull some of the ones out of this and add them into that as well. So it just remains for me to say thank you very much to Basilio for sharing his knowledge with us, and to Soma for doing a great job of hosting it, and from BV to all of you for attending. And all the best with the ongoing challenges we're all facing in doing business